I just horrifically bombed an interview. I've worked as a software developer for 15 years, mostly for a Fortune 500, and then the US government as a lead developer. It was my first time interviewing in 5 years. I couldn't remember what a batch job was called, screwed up very basic Java coding problem, and couldn't explain what the DOM was. Anxiety fucking sucks. I went into the interview very confident, then the part of my brain that hates me kept saying, "Are you sure about that, idiot?" And that part won. I just feel embarrassed. I'm finding that when my interview skills are cold, it takes me like 3 interview pipelines to calm down and relearn why I hate all of this again. Find out where I'm really messing up, uncomfortable, and go look up the docs again to keep the rote trivia answers warm. Doing mock interviews with an old colleague, friend, etc. is the best way to practice. If no one is available to you for that, look up commonly asked questions for the role you're aiming for and record yourself answering them. OP, thanks for posting this and re-shining a light on a very real phenomenon. Interviewing is a discipline in and of itself. Or go do some interviews with actual companies you don't like. Intuit and Nestle. Here I come. A friend of mine just got an interview with the Border Patrol. Yes, it's for web work. Ah, God, haha, none. Muhahaha. Border, none important. So why do you choose our company? Bro, Intuit will pay well for software engineers. Fuck Deloitte, though. I've seen some people use ChatGPT to roleplay as an interviewer. That's some serious shit that makes me to buy their sub. Nice, I think I subconsciously felt the same when I was doing interviews a year ago, but didn't put it to words. This makes so much sense. Thanks. I'm the same way. I usually try to schedule at least one interview with a company I have no intentions of working for to shake off the cobwebs. 3 is a lot. Maybe I should give, and folks like you should find practice interviews to people. I take every interview for crap I don't want as practice when starting out again. Interviewing is a practiced skill these days. i.red./JHR55T als IVV5 alt 2E6 want jape. Unzip? Sure. Username checks out. Got 'em. I'm so honored to be your first reply internet friend. May this new account mark a positive point in your journey. I'm honored you noticed. Thank you. More like WinRAR. Underrated comment. TARDXXX. So true. This will hopefully change now that the hype and salary around web dev jobs is falling. It probs won't given how the tech job market is right now. So insanely true it hurts. Not to mention that the available data shows without a shadow of a doubt that leak code style interviews have absolutely no correlation with on-the-job performance. For a field that sniffs its own farts about how data-driven, logical, and empirical it is, we're basically interviewing based on mysticism. I soft-failed a coding test for Amazon during my last job search. Fucking stacks. That's the only one I've ever failed. I still think about it sometimes. I've been a dev for over 20 years. The smartest and most accomplished, and likely wealthiest, pure dev I know on Earth told me that he's failed 6 coding tests, 3 of them embarrassingly. And of the remaining 3, at least 1 was a terrible failure, but he was convinced the question was so ridiculous that he wasn't embarrassed. Prior to that conversation, I felt like I fucked up by failing that one test. Now I feel like, if anything, I fucked up by not taking and failing more tests. Coding tests are absolutely pathetic. As an engineering manager, alls it tells me is you can solve some bullshit problem you'll likely never encounter in a real-life job. I actively ignore these when I recruit. I don't care, you can use a linked list to make a cup of coffee. I do care that you can communicate. can solve problems as part of a team, are humble and hungry to learn with a nice personality, and would be a good fit for my team. I'd rather a candidate understand concepts with real-life experience of applying them. Coding tests infuriate me. I think a simple one dealing with array or object manipulation is fine. No gotchas, just make sure you can do basic stuff. Literally 10 minutes as just a way to weed out completely incompetent people or ChatGPT abusers. Agreed. Years ago, we asked someone to do FizzBuzz in pseudocode. Just talk us through it. Real loose. Sorry to say she was a poser. At the time, I wondered if we were being dicks. We didn't need a great coder, but we needed a coder. You don't account for performance anxiety, which is proven to be the case for almost all female coders, and that it was so simple really makes it worse. And because it was so simple, how does it help you find the right candidate for a job? It's just a bad idea. Two-way. Putting my woke-ass hat on for a second, anxiety is not solely a female issue. Men and women both get anxious during interviews. It's just the nature of the activity. news.ncsu.edu/2020/07 tech job interviews anxiety to use news/tech job interviews anxiety/. Sure, it affects both genders, yet research shows that females perform significantly worse compared to males in this particular field. Brother, you trying to hire me? Ma'am. May. I don't give them now, but I did 3 months as an interviewer for a software consultancy in between projects. The test was never to produce a solution. It was to see how the candidate analyzes the question and get them talking. Same here. Been doing this 20 years. I'm a contractor, but I refuse to take jobs with big companies that do these asinine 4-part interviews. For one thing, it's a complete waste of my time where I could be making money. Second, they invariably have an interview team that loves to dream up esoteric problem-solving questions that require you to dredge up shit you learned in college and never ever used again. It's just not practical. You want to test me, give me a mini project that reflects your real-world requirements and give me an hour to complete it, or something useful. Yeah, for the fancy FANG-type places, LeetCode and the SysArch questions have become something of a ritual hazing. I think the SysArch is useful for mid-level plus ENGs, though. Then you have places that pay a fraction of FANG, which make the same awful tests and lament that they are having trouble hiring. It's just always way out of touch with reality. I've forgotten more C++ than I remember at this point, but if I had to, I could quickly get up to speed on it again. I just don't use it enough to maintain that skill set. So if I'm applying to a C# or Java job, why the fuck are you asking me random C++ questions? I've decided it's a smug little, I'm smarter than you kind of thing for them. In any event, I don't do the tests anymore. I ask off the bat what their interview policy is like. If it's more than 2 meetings or they want me to take some stupid test, I tell them no, thanks. Damn same here, contractor, and if they need 2 or 3 meeting, I pull out of process, tell them they failed to get me interested in the assignment. Been contracting since 2018, had big and small clients who would take me in based on 1 interview. These are the best type of clients. Yep, kinda pisses some of them off, but I don't care. I spent too many years working for the man and following his rules. I work for myself now and answer to me. No time for bullshit. We are on the same team. I fully understand you, and I'm the same way. Contract jobs should be only 2 interviews tops. Any more than that should be a red flag. True dat. I always ask up front what their interview policy is like if it's more than 2 meetings, or they want me to take some stupid test. I tell them, no thanks. I heard a lot of contracting interview processes are just 1 interview. Is that true? I mean, 1 initial small with the recruiter and then 1 simple technical interview without requiring any projects, etc.? Is that correct? I still haven't done any contracting, but I'm definitely thinking of doing it in the future. I dread the usual interview processes, so I'm wondering how it is for contracting positions. I've done contracting for 5 years and had 5 clients so far, and all based on just one interview. No technical interviews. Some clients asked me to do tests. I'd tell them I'm not interested in their particular opportunity and wait till right clients came by. And what do they ask on those one interviews? Just what have you worked on? Where did you find those 5 clients? Word of mouth or normal job postings? Yes, regarding where I found them. I never looked for clients myself directly. I added 200 IT recruiters on LinkedIn and let them do their job. They would message me with opportunities each week. If I was available, I would change my status on LinkedIn and opportunities would start dropping into my inbox. This is what worked for me. I would be clear in my LinkedIn that I'm looking for contract work. Also, I would buy VIP LinkedIn since this would put me on top of searches for relevant keywords. I should write a book on this. I got a weirdly interesting story to tell. Anyways, they mostly want to check the personality to see if you are normal and if they'll be able to work with you. I always brought my laptop with me and asked on first interview to show the latest project of mine. If they agreed, and mostly they do, I visual demo of the web app to show them what I can make. Interviews were simple. They told me about their project's company a bit and asked me to tell about myself and my previous experience. Usually they would respond within a day or two and ask me to join them. I've even had IKEA as client, and it took one interview and I stayed with them for 2.5 years, them extending me each 5 the month for another 5 months. Yeah, that should be the normal interview process for all interviews, not just contracting. And were all jobs hard, a lot of work, or were some nice and easy? Lots of jobs had chaos element baked in. These are the best clients as they are desperate to get talent. With chaos, I mean chaos in their processes, or they were way too late, past the deadlines, and they desperately need talent to come in and help them. They cut all the bullshit interviews and just did one interview. Jobs were not hard, and some were walk in the park. I even in my last held a position of front-end lead. Job was not hard, but there was lots of chaos. Client even warned me about this on the interview and asked if I'm okay with chaos. And there was lots of technical debt since they had an old monolith based on .NET. We are talking 10 to 15-year-old code. Job had a bit stress in it since, as front-end lead, all other front-end devs need you to help them with stuff, and you would be pulled in all directions and barely had time to focus. But anyways, that last job I was making $2,000 to $25,000 a month, and being that well paid, I told myself I'll enjoy chaos and deal with anything they have problems with. It lasted 8 months, so I made quite a bit of money. Wow, that's amazing. I was at multiple companies where they were desperate and suddenly contractors show after 2 or 3 days, so I understand that. Did you find the jobs online or just word of mouth? I know that eventually things might start to snowball, lots of new clients, just with word of mouth. LinkedIn and all jobs found me, not the other way around. Recruiters who would look me up on LinkedIn got me my first 4 clients. And last client was delivered by a girl. I helped with a friend of mine get a job and enter the industry as front-end developer. She had issues getting a job as all she had was 6 months of boot camp and then self-study at home. Nobody wanted to give her a chance. A friend of mine and I recommended her to the very company where I ended 2 years down the road as front-end lead, based on her asking me if I was interested in such a role, since the company was desperate for the front-end lead, and they couldn't find anyone that would stay. They had 2 contractors before me leave the position after just a few months. I was at IKEA at that time and was bored after 2.5 years, so I asked her to set up an interview with the managers. And that was that. I did the interview, impressed the bosses, told them I eat chaos for breakfast. They asked me how much will you charge us. I told them my price, and I was in. Nice, it seems like it's going quite well for you so far. The only jobs people contact me for on LinkedIn are just full-time positions, not contractors. The thing is that currently the market is not doing well, and while I was getting 4 or 5 contacts per day on LinkedIn, nowadays I get 1 every 2 or 3 days, and I have close to 7K connections. Have you also been noticing that in the contracting world? Yes, you are right about the market, and also, it has been going nice for me. But now for last 12 months I am without client since the market has changed because of the economy. Clients are not disparate right now and market is overflowing with talent. So even though I had some interviews both at Axis Communication and IKEA, for example, in last month, I did not get selected. There is just too much talent for them to pick. And it's our time now. My first 5-6 years as contractors were amazing because economy was better and all companies were building new software or improving old. I'm doing well still because I can live for a while on money I've made with last client, and I lower my own salary to minimum I need so I can last a very long time between clients. When I started with contracting, I had 180 connections. Once one of those connections brought me my first client, I realized I need more connections, so I built it up to 5,000 quickly and let it remain at that number. I also added 200 or 300 recruiters just to help them find me easier when they do a search. Once the economy turns around, good times will return, and desperate clients as well. Just need to sit out or weather out this tide. Yup, definitely looking forward to things getting better and for all these layoffs to stop. Let's hope things get better soon. Good luck with your search. And the same to you, friend. Good luck. May fortune follow you. After decades of working for the man, I went into business for myself and started freelancing. My only regret was not doing it much sooner. I set my own hours. I choose my clients. If I don't like working with a client, I fire them. Email. It's better in every way, but if you are going to do it, I'd work on getting a couple clients first so you won't have any interruptions in income, and take really good care of the first one so you get good reviews and good word of mouth. I heard a lot of contracting interview processes are just one interview. Is that true? I mean, one initial small with the recruiter and then one simple technical interview without requiring any projects, etc. Is that correct? Depends. If you do the standard job site route, you still get the bullshit a lot of the time. I just tell them no thanks if they have too many hoops to jump through or think they can negotiate on my rate or terms. Sometimes that kind of pisses off recruiters, but who cares? Fuck 'em. I know what I want. I don't have time for the bullshit. If you go through Upwork or similar, it tends to be like you say, you have an initial meeting with actual stakeholders to discuss their project. You talk about yourself and how you'd tackle the project, and if they like you, you're hired. I need to start finding recruiters specifically just for contracting. Maybe that will help with getting a gig that doesn't require much effort in the interviewing process. I thought Upwork was awful because people from lower income countries always offer their services for pennies. I thought Upwork was awful because people from lower income countries always offer their services for pennies. Yeah, it kinda is at this point. But you'll still find jobs, though, is where US-based employers have had the full experience of hiring hacks from India or wherever. They soon find out you get what you pay for, and it's crap, and realize it's better to pay for quality. Look for the postings that require US time zones. The irony is that these big companies have done the fucking research and concluded that LeetCode code puzzle esoteric interviews have zero ability to predict on-the-job performance. Look up the work by Laszlo Bock from Google. They still stick to them because, well, I think it's just like pure belief and inertia at this point because they fucking know. And also that they have such an insane amount of applicants, they can afford to pass on great engineers and wait for a great engineer who can also do LeetCode shit that is not a part of their expected duties. As someone who does not want to work for one of these giants, I don't really care. However, this affects all of us in the sense that so many small, mid-sized firms are fucking delusional and blindly copy practices, tools, etc. from these big tech companies. In contrast to the big boys, these companies are just shooting themselves in the foot, as it's unlikely they're getting the application volume of a Google and might be passing on great engineers who would do great on their team. And the idea of copying the big guy, generally speaking, has led to so much bullshit in the small mid-sized firms. I talked about passing on talent, but even things like technology choice. For example, everyone and their mom builds everything as an SPA these days. Then they start noticing all the SPA issues, and then they're kind of fucked, because the things Google and Facebook left out when they were marketing their latest SPA framework shit is that they have so many engineers they can dedicate teams larger than the entire engineering org of small firms solely to dealing with performance issues arising out of their SPA framework. But don't worry, they're about to release some new tool that fixes the problem and introduces another, but shh!
Div.
As someone who does not want to work for one of these giants, I don't really care. However, this affects all of us in the sense that so many small, mid-sized firms are fucking delusional and blindly copy practices, tools, etc. from these big tech companies. Yep, that's how we got fucking Agile Scrummed. If you've ever read the original Agile Manifesto from which this is bastardized, the very first tenet is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Agile Scrum is the exact opposite of that. Lol. But your idiot CEO met with for cocktails his other CEO buddies and they're all doing it, which means we need to do it. As my mom was fond of saying, if your friends all went and jumped off a bridge, would you do the same? Use your fucking brain. Evaluate these new ideas and tech and figure out what parts, if any, might benefit you and adopt those. Example, if your team is 20 to 25 people, then daily stand-up is probably not a bad idea to keep everyone in the loop, identify issues, blockers, etc. If your team is 3 people who work very closely every day, then it's a waste of time. Which is a bit ironic, because happily employed people are bad at interviewing, and people who job hop or are unemployed are probably quite good. I think about my early interviews when I'm looking for a new job, and I probably seem like a dummy. By the end, I'm sure I seem very competent, but in reality, I'm just as good as I was at the beginning. I once screwed up an interview where it was the FANG interview style because the lead dev used to work at Amazon. The thing is, it was a pre-seed startup with like 4 hires so far, and it wasn't some crazy complex ML thing that needed crazy infra. It was a donations platform. Like, people study for 3 to 6 months to pass FANG, and the recruiter gave me a week's notice. I mean, if I could pass that, I'd be working Amazon, Google, etc., not your shitty startup. The recruiter gave me a week's notice. That's fucked up. Not even the serious places do that. Tabesh, the recruiter, was pissed off at them too. I told him he'd never get his fee because they're never going to find someone that A, can pass his client's interview process, and B, wants to work for some shitty startup when they could go to FANG. Fuck them and his Amazon idiot. And with that point, everyone in here reading this should regularly interview for new opportunities, regardless of how content they are in their position. I make it a point to entertain every position a recruiter sends my way. It helps keep the mind sharp for interviews. 2 was part of a group interview of a candidate, and at the end we rejected him because his answers were too pat rote. Felt like maybe he'd only done study guides or something. Scarily weird. And one candidate's grasp of English went south, but they persisted and kept asking us what we meant. The persistence in the face of adversity and the final answers won the day. One of the best hires I've ever participated in. So, it varies. Pat wrote. What does this mean? Memorized, like they weren't actually thinking about what they were saying and just rattling it off like on an academic test. I'm not as experienced as you, but I quickly realized that interviewing is a skill on its own and it takes practice. I bombed an interview not too long ago, couldn't solve the simplest problem, brain just shut down. Of course, after they left, I solved it in a few seconds. You haven't interviewed in a while. You've got to get used to it again. Don't worry, you'll get another job soon. Interviewing is arguably the most important skill, or at least it used to be when job hopping let you leap promo levels. Once I bombed an interview, knew it, emailed the hiring manager afterwards, and explained that I was not at my best and would appreciate a second chance. They said, "Thanks, but pretty sure we've seen enough." A couple of weeks later, they called me back in for another interview. A couple of weeks after that, I had the job. So I guess the moral of the story is that sometimes if you follow up, they'll settle.